What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mike Roach Show. And of course, I told you in my last few shows, I would not let you down on those off days. I told you I would bring quality content. So I reached out to a legend. I reached out to a man, a myth, the one they call Boogie, former Toronto Raptor, current NBA analyst for the NBA and Sportsnet, the one, the only, Mr. Alvin Williams. Alvin, my brother, what's going on, man?
Oh man, that's a heck of an introduction, man. You're getting better and better. I gotta start up in the charges. I gotta start up in the prices, man. You're doing a good job introducing me, dog. Appreciate you. How you feel, Mike?
Listen, it's all good, man. It's all love, Alvin. You know, it's easy when it comes from here. You know,
Yeah,
it's easy when it
facts,
comes from here. So
facts.
so listen, appreciate you for coming on the show, man. You've been super supportive, and you know what? I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time, my man.
No
And
doubt.
you know what's going on here, Alvin. We're talking pretty much all Raptors here. Okay,
Okay.
because last night we saw a hell of a game in game 3 from one Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett, and more than just those guys. But let's just start there. All right. I want to know what your takeaway is from that win in game 3 for the Toronto Raptors. Your biggest takeaway, I should say.
Maturity. I thought that, a lot of times people really don't realize it. You hear the chatter and you hear the narrative about how the regular season is so different. The postseason is so much different than the regular season.
Mhm.
And until you're in that environment, until you're really in those situations, day after day, game after game, the emotional highs and lows, the physicality of these games, the psychological pieces that play a part, until you're in it, you really don't understand it. And I think these players now, especially Scotty, I think he's figuring it out. Like, wow, this is what it feels like, and this is how I have to play. This is my approach. And I'm not talking about statistically. I'm just talking about the effort. I'm talking about the intensity. I'm talking about the concentration. I'm talking about everything that you put into it. Um, this is what required in these type of games. So I think Scotty just showed exactly how he needed to approach the game. And then, the result was the result. And I think that's the biggest thing I see maturity and people learning on the job and on the fly when it comes to playoff experience.
Break down the difference with the way that he played in game 3 compared to 1 and 2.
Well, I just thought he was more assertive, trying to score the basketball. Scotty is a facilitator at heart. And when you're a facilitator at heart, man, a lot of times you read the game, you have a different feel for the game, opposed to somebody that's always on go, always trying to attack and score the basketball, right? Like you have somebody, a facilitator, is thinking out there for others. They're reading the game on different levels. They're trying to get people open. They're trying to deliver passes. They're trying to again, think the game in a different way. So it's just not always one way. So I think Scotty now has found that nice balance. He still can deliver the assists, deliver those passing opportunities, but I just thought he was more forceful, playing, getting downhill, getting in the paint, finishing, being decisive, all of those things. And sometimes you learn that as the game 1 and 2 goes on. You're like, oh, this is small dosage. We saw it at the end of game 1. Scotty start taking the ball coast to coast, getting downhill, bodying Evan Mobley, trying to finish over Jared Allen, but the game was out of hand. Game 2, similar things happened near the end of the game. I
Mhm.
think going into game 3, he said, you know what? This is what I have to do from the beginning. I know I can do it. Let me just do it from the beginning, and then everybody else will follow.
Can you speak to the audience about the growth of RJ's game? How has he been able to be so consistent, even through games 1 and 2, and then continuing into game 3?
I just think again, I think he believes in it. Like he's super confident. He's confident in his work. He's confident in his ability. And with RJ, it was all about, I think, timing. When, like you talk about an attacker, RJ is becoming more of a playmaker, finding people, having the vision to deliver the rock when needs be, like draw two. He did a good job one play last night that he just got 2 feet in the paint, pump fake, was going for a shot, but drew two defenders and dropped it off, I think, to CMB or dropped it off to, a player, Raptor, and they finished. So RJ now is finding also a nice balance to his game. He knows when to go. And the only time RJ, I think, gets in trouble is when he tries to go through 2 and 3 players, right? When he puts himself in those situations. But again, he's learning. RJ is still very young, man. He's still very young. And the way that 3 ball was falling yesterday, I was proud. I was looking at Mr. and Mrs. Barrett, and I sitting there. I wanted to be part of the family. I'm sitting there proud, man, and I was just so happy for RJ because I know how much it means to him to be in Toronto, to play for the Raptors, and now you're on a huge stage delivering and putting on for your hometown. So I'm proud of him, man, the way he continues to develop.
And, in the second half, you really saw him step up from a defensive standpoint against James Harden, staying in front of him a bit more. But Alvin, James Harden, just watching him, man, he got a nice handle. He's shifty. And I mean, how do you stay in front of this guy? Seriously, because it's so tough because it's one thing when you're a guy on the couch watching from the television. But from a guy who played at a low level, I'm talking about high school and then coached for over a decade. When you see the guy, the size, strength of James Harden, but how shifty he is with his handle as well, I would say you try to shadow him kind of with his left hand because you don't want him going left. But at the same time, even though you do that, he's still good enough to find his way going left. How do you deal with it?
It's very challenging, man. When you talk about James Harden has seen every defense. He's faced big guys, small guys, the switching defense. He's been trapped. I've seen people play behind him so he couldn't step back. Like I've seen so many types of defenses of that player. They try to force him right, try to make him go left and put help side there. But he has the ability to do all of those things and manipulate the defense. So it's impossible to guard James Harden and stop him from doing what he wants to do. I think the biggest thing is when you're playing somebody like James Harden, you just make him an isolation player. You want him just to be that scorer, especially at this phase of his career, because I don't think he wants to be the person that's getting 50s and 40s and all that stuff. Like he can here and there, but I think at the most you can't allow him to engage everybody else. You can't let him to draw to get the lobs to Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and then they get the ball and they kick it out to a shooter, and they do all like now you're getting everybody involved, and he's just breaking down your entire defense. So I like the fact when you talk about like a RJ Barrett, and you talk about Scotty Barnes or CMB, these guys can actually switch on him and just make it more difficult. And a lot of times when you're a great offensive player, if you have different players guarding you with different abilities, different statures, different athleticism, and just different qualities, sometimes it takes a while to figure that out. And I thought the Raptors did a good job of showing them different bodies. And if you look at James Harden, the funny, as great as James Harden is, James Harden in game 1 and 2 can look like one of the best players that ever touched the basketball. And then he can go out there and look like me. It's so up and down. At times it baffles you. It makes you confused. And sometimes as a player, you just don't know what James Harden is going to show up. And he's also a player that you talk about that thinks the game in a different light. So again, he's going to attack it at times. He's going to probe. He's going to do certain things. But, some days when James Harden, and I believe the further the series goes, the more he fades out a bit. I think he fades out a bit. I don't think he still has that motor to keep moving forward, but he definitely has the ability to win a ball game. So you don't want it to come down to game 7 or to a moment, because he can make a game-winning shot. He can make a game-winning play. But the Raptors did a good job of keeping pressure on him and showing him different bodies last night.
So with that being said, and the way the fourth quarter went for the Raptors in game 3, what are some adjustments that you think the Cavs are going to make to combat the things that the Raptors are doing?
I don't know, man, because again, when you talk about Scotty's one of those players that is hard to game plan for, because again, he's not just doing it one way. He's trying to pass the ball. He can impact the game in so many different ways without you even having to draw up a play or put him through some action. Scotty's a guy that can get the ball off the rebound, push it, can find others, go all the way downhill. Scotty's a guy that you could put as a screener that can roll to the basket a bit. Scotty's a guy that you can have him handling the basketball. So you can put him in different places. But I do believe that the Cavs, I think what they believe, the Raptors won't shoot at such a high clip like
Mhm.
that, like they did. Jameson Battle came in there and RJ in the fourth quarter. I think he went 4 for 4 from three and had
Yep.
16 points. That was a phenomenal fourth quarter. I actually looked, and I think at the end of the third, it was 83-83. And I really honestly thought the Raptors were in trouble because I was like, you know what? Raptors usually have trouble scoring in the fourth quarter. But man, they hit a barrage of shots. It was one of those things. If you saw the Sixers game against Boston Celtics, like game two, like VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey, those guys were hitting shots, man. And
Oh yeah.
anytime Boston tried to make a run, those shots were being made. So that's what happened with with the Raptors as well last night. So if you're Cleveland, I don't know if you have a knee-jerk reaction, but you definitely can have a performance out of Donovan Mitchell like you had in game three and James Harden as well.
Now, Alvin, how hard is it to do what Jameson Battle did last night? Because in and out of the lineup, you don't play in a while, and you being a veteran, an NBA veteran, would know what it would be like to be in all different type of positions. There are times when you're the main starter, you're in playoff battles. There'll be times you're coming off the bench. How tough is it, when you're not necessarily getting consistent time in the rotation, and then you're in game 3 of a playoff series, your name gets called, and you're ready?
Yeah, it can be very difficult. And I guess it's depending on the individual. Me personally, it would have been very difficult for me to go in the game and do what Jameson Battle did. But sometimes, as a player, I'm sure you've been through this, and a lot of people can relate to this. You go through so many ups and downs, you go through so many uncertainties that when you get your chance, you're like, you push the effort button. Like, whatever, like when I get my hand on the ball, I'm gonna just play carefree. What else can happen to me? And once you get
Mhm.
into that mode where you're playing carefree and you're not worrying about making a mistake, you're not worrying about missing a shot, you just going out there and just balling. A lot of times things like that will happen for you. And Jameson Battle found himself in position to get those opportunities to knock those shots down. And it was one subtle play because I've been preaching for it all series. The Raptors identifying matchups where, again, if you see James Harden on that floor or Donovan Mitchell, I have to attack them. Each
Mm,
possession,
yes.
I'm making James Harden play defense. You figure James Harden, he's never been a great defensive player, but 17 years in the league, playoff time, you have to wear that man down. Donovan Mitchell, a smaller guard, I'm going to wear him down. I'm going to take advantage. And Jameson Battle did something where he had an opportunity to get a shot, get in the game, and let it go, and backed it out, had the ball. I can't remember if it was BI or Scottie. And they had a good matchup, dropped it in down low. They got a bucket. Next thing you know, dropping them down low, it frees up a little things, and now people aren't paying so much attention to you. Now you just have enough space to get your shot going. So, I mean, I thought he did a good job overall, not just shooting. He didn't do anything. He was calm out there. He was poised. The action was hot and heavy, and he stepped in like a veteran guy. And he's a young player, but he stepped in like a veteran guy. And to your question, it's very challenging, and it could be very challenging. It could be very unsettling, but he's a true professional, man. You got to tip your hat to Jameson Battle for his performance and him being a true professional, being ready for the performance.
Now, Brandon Ingram has been struggling thus far this series, but the great thing is that at some point, I think he's due for a big one. And by big, I'm not necessarily mean going off for 35 or 40, but I think you can get 18, 20 and get a decent field goal percentage out of him. As a guy who's struggling, how does he keep his head? Um, what's the best way to how do you stay focused, and what adjustments can he make to kind of get himself going a little bit?
I just think, first of all, he has to realize he's actually doing his job or a big part of his job, and he's attracting a lot of attention. When you have one player that can attract a lot of attention, command double teams, you're opening spaces up and opportunities up for everybody else. A lot of teams, they don't have that. So when you have BI, he has to realize that, all right, when I come down here and this is happening and the defense is playing me this way, I'm doing part of my job. And then the other side is now when I'm trying to get my points and trying to get myself going, I got to try to put myself in position when I catch the defense can't collapse, right? It's a farther run, or it's a shorter opportunity for them to try to adjust or react. And how do you do that? You do that by doing your work early, sprinting down the floor, getting in position, hitting first, getting to your spot and get a little, deeper into your spot. So if you do get pushed out, now I'm still catching the ball where I want to catch it. Right.
Mm.
If it was closer, now it's gravy. So it's a lot of times it's about getting to your position and doing your work early. A lot of times you hear coaches and everything, you got to sprint back on defense. I've always been, somebody that sprint on offense. Get to
Mm.
your position. Get to your position. Make the defense have to be ready. If their defense not ready, I'm already, the pistol didn't blew. Right, it's time to go. So him just doing his work early, sprinting down the floor. But understand too, man, you're doing your job by attracting so much attention. And once you do that, man, now it's about making the right reads. This might not be the game, or this might not be the series for you to average 25, 24. This might be the series for you to have 7 rebounds and 8 assists, and you have 15 points. You're talking about a guy who scored, almost 22 points a game. So it wasn't like he was top 5 in scoring, like he's a 30-point scorer. So now if he's scoring about 22 a game, you figure he could be around that mark or at 19 points, but he has to do the other things as well. But he just got to continue plugging away and figuring it out.
Now, you mentioned the word sprinting a few times, and we know that as the playoffs start, the games typically slow down, right? But do you want to still see the Raptors play at the speed that they played at during the regular season, or is that a bit too risky or dangerous? You need to see that game slow down.
No, I mean you try to execute your strengths. If it's fast pace, if it's up tempo, you try to play that style. But it's just one of those things where you look at how the Raptors get out in transition. They forced a lot of turnovers. They got a lot of points off of turnovers. You're not going to force a lot of turnovers in the playoffs. You're going to have games where, like, the Raptors had 20 some turnovers. Cleveland had 20 some turnovers yesterday. But that's not going to be your typical output of an offense, right? It's more methodical. It's more, possession by possession. It's you're playing the same team over and over again. So they're pretty much ready for your style. But if you can play up tempo, if you can get quick buckets, if you can get easy buckets, by all means, go for it. But at that same time, you got to understand you can't be sloppy. You got to be really sharp, because a lot of times, typically when you're playing fast, sometimes you're making quick decisions, and sometimes in a postseason, those quick decisions aren't the right decisions. And just because somebody make a play and the other team gets the ball, that's just not your only turnover. If you have a bad possession, right? If you're shooting against the shot clock, if you're taking a bad shot, if you're getting passes deflected, those things are just as effective as a turnover, actually. Dead ball turnovers, so you can take it out of bounds, you can get set. But if you can't execute with crispness and you can't be sharp in the half court set, then it's going to be really tough to just rely on one style, and that's up tempo. It's tough, but of course you want to have that balance and get your opportunities to run when you can.
And we've looked at a guy in this series like Jakob Poeltl, who hasn't necessarily played great in this series thus far. I did think he played a little bit better in game 3.
Yeah.
How do you think you best utilize Jakob Poeltl in this series?
I think it's again, we talked about BI. Some certain series calls for certain things. And the Raptors are fortunate enough to have a Poeltl and have a CMB, have a Sandro, have guys like that you can mix and match and you can put them in. I think defensively is where it really struggles. He struggles because he has to guard the pick and roll action. And if you're switching out there, he's going to have to guard one of the perimeter guys, James Harden or Donovan Mitchell. And Allen and Mobley, they do a really good job of finishing at the rim. So it's just hard to ask Jakob Poeltl to play the defense that he's playing, and then also, trying to be productive on the offensive floor. So on the offensive side, so when you do have a CMB can go out there and he can switch. He can go out there and guard James Harden. He can go out there and guard, Max Strus. He can go out there and guard Donovan Mitchell. These are guys that he can guard. Jakob Poeltl can't do the same thing, and especially when you look at a Raptors team that likes to pressure the ball, that like to have guys switching and still apply pressure on the perimeter. Jakob Poeltl, that's not his strength. So it's a very tough matchup for him, and it's just something where you just hope that you can get the most out of him. And the other thing, the Raptors, their defense is one style. It's not a style where sometimes you see they can go to a zone to hide them. You know, some defenses, you'll hide a joker, you hide guys that really can't guard out there on the perimeter. But the Raptors don't. They're pressuring. So it's tough for Jakob Poeltl this series. And but I thought, to your point, I thought he had a much better game in game 3 when he's out there. If they are going small, get some opportunities. Get some opportunities. And I think that's who Jameson Battle passed to when he posted up Sam Merrill, right? When he posted him up and got the jump hook over him. So I think that was a play that I was talking about with Jameson Battle.
Yes. Okay. So you did mention Collin Murray-Boyles here, and one of the things that you mentioned is that you like the way that he can switch onto different positions when he's out there. Now, I want to ask you to try and get a bit more technical for just 1 second when talking about Collin Murray-Boyles, because I want to ask you specifically why he is such a good defender. You mentioned that he can switch, but what are the other aspects of his game defensively that make him so good?
I'm gonna tell you the first thing, he takes pride in it. If you watch his warm-ups, he's working on defensive slides. He's working on playing in the gaps. He's working on playing the ball, pressuring the ball, not giving up angles, trying to chest, trying to use his physicality. If you see him with the coaches and everything, they're working on those things. They're not just working on jump shots and finishing around the basket and the ball handling. He's actually out there, one of the few players that you see around the NBA working on their defense and working on their responsibilities as a defender. So when you start right there with somebody that want to do it, the other person I've seen do that is Wemby. Wembanyama, he does the same things on the warm-up side. So he concentrates on it. He wants to play good defense, but also he has good feet. He has good feet, and he's able to move his feet. But I think the biggest thing with him and the way the game is played today and the way the calls are being made, he's very strong. He's very strong. So he can use his strength to body you up, to prevent you from getting to different spots, as well as moving his feet. So I think those are the two things that I see as far as his foot movement. He has great feet, and he's very, very strong. But the most important thing, Mike, and I'll say it to anybody, he wants it up here. Like if you want to do it, and you could be a horrible defender, but if you want to do it, it'll make you that much better of a defender. So he's really accepted and stepped up to the plate, when it comes to that responsibility.
Now, Alvin, you've been in some pretty deep playoff runs here, and I got to ask you. We hear the term experience a lot when it comes to the playoffs. You got to have experience, right? What do playoff experience players know that non-playoff experienced players don't know?
I think it's more of the approach. I think it's more of the understanding that it's so many highs and lows. It's an emotional thing. You can blow a team out in game 1, and then you can come back and lose in game 2. We've seen that this year. We've seen the Raptors when they won the championship. We've seen them lose the first game to Orlando, ended up going all the way. No one probably thought after they lost the first game to Orlando, everybody probably was like, oh, here we go again. Yeah. And then you go to Milwaukee and lose 2 games, and then you win 4 straight against a great Milwaukee Bucks team. So you just the highs and lows of it. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. Kevin Willis, my OG, used to always tell me, even kill, young fella, even kill. And that's what it was about. It's about how you handle your emotions. And then the next thing is just the preparation. These games come so fast, and the intensity of these games, like you have to recover, you have to prepare, you have to mentally prepare for these games, because when you're playing against a team over and over and over again, possibly 7 times, and you know exactly what they're going to do. They know exactly what you're going to do. You know their tendencies. You know all their counters. You know all of these things. Now it's about how hard you're going to play, how much you're going to be focused, how good are you going to execute. All those little intricacies when it comes to being successful, those are the little things. Those are the things that are big. So I think when you just realize those aspects, experience teaches you that. Experience teaches you, it's going to be all right, on to the next play, right? It's not over. Don't put your head down. Don't put your head down. Don't get rejected. Don't get dejected. It's just one of those things where you got to keep fighting. So I think experience helps you with that. But experience is not the only thing. People lay their hat on the most experienced team will win. That's not always the case. That's not always the case, because sometimes some of these young Thundercats, they don't care who you are. They're gonna come right at you. They're gonna be more physical. They're gonna play with pride. They're gonna play with ignorance. They're gonna play with disrespect. and they're going to try to knock you out of your position. So some experience is not the only thing, but it's very helpful in certain situations.
How do you display leadership, and who taught you what leadership was at the highest level?
Um, I got a chance to play with a bunch of great leaders. And I was in college. I had a guy, a close friend, brother of mine, pretty much, Jonathan Haynes. He was a great leader. And one thing I noticed about him, he didn't he didn't he wasn't self-absorbed with his performance. He was, if we were playing well and he was stinking, he was still leading us, encouraging us. He wasn't about his game. He wasn't a front runner. He wasn't on a bandwagon. He was a guy that's I'm the leader on and off the floor. So I always had that presence. So he had his temperament and everything. So I always thought it was about his temperament. And I always thought when I got into that leadership position, I had to take myself out of the picture. I had to always prepare. I had to prepare. I had to know what was going on if I'm going to give instruction. And I had to lead by example. I was more of a leader by example through hard work. But then after a while, it's like, all right, let's observe some people. I can't talk to Mike the same way I can talk to Jake. I can't talk to Jake the same way I can talk to Al. I got to be able to really break down and decipher who these personalities are. How can I get the most out of my teammates, and how can I be there to support? So I think a lot of those things came from, early on. And then when I was in Raptors, man, I had so many vets. You already know, from the Muggsy Bogues to D Brown, Charles Oakley, Antonio Davis, Doug Christie, Del Curry. Like it's just, I was on the phone today with Rod Strickland. Rod Strickland was there for a little bit, but he was very quiet. But he led. He led by example. The way he carried himself, it was so many people there that really helped. Like Kevin Willis, again, we had so many vets. So I learned from all of those guys how to be a leader. Mark Jackson, how to be a leader. So it comes with the territory. I don't think it's given. I think it can grow inside you, and I think you can be born to be a leader.
All right, last one here for you, Alvin. How do you think Darko has been thus far in his first playoff series as a head coach, and him making these adjustments and tough decisions?
I love Darko. I love Darko. I love the fact that he's going through this on the job. You talk about experience. You don't have much playoff experience as a head coach. This is his first time around, and it's different levels. You talk about Darko, and I thought his superpower, and I think his superpower, but he's going to keep growing, is his ability to pour into the players. And a lot of times, if you come from a player development background and that's been your role, um, that's one of those prestigious positions. It's very valuable because you get to know the players deeper than X's and O's. When you're working out the players, you get to talk, you get to hear about, why they're upset, why aren't they playing? How can I get out of my slump? So you're working with players on a more intimate level.
Mhm.
So now what's required out of him is not just the X's, the player development. Now it's X's and O's. Now it's managing a locker room. Now it's, giving a stamp on a rotation, substitution patterns, timeouts, challenging calls, all of those things. So he's learning. He's putting a lot of trust in his staff, and the entire staff is growing. And you just saw last night, it was one play last night, right? That I think everybody was scratching their head. Scotty Barnes was rolling. He was rolling. He was rolling like a donut. And you see, he gets subbed out. And everybody's like, what the hell? Like, why is he getting subbed out? We don't know what's going on. We don't know. But also, you take a look. Scotty had 3 fouls early on. So
Yep.
having to make that call. Do I leave him in the game? Do I take him out? I have to have him. So now I have to manipulate the time. I have to manipulate, his fouls. I have to manipulate the possessions now. And it was one play when he was rolling, he had an opportunity to post up James Harden, cut baseline, post up James Harden. RJ Barrett had the ball. Scotty told him to go the other way. And I think the coaches actually saw that and probably saw that, he's tired. He's gassed out. And they gave him that break. But you saw a picture of RJ. Why are you taking him out? Like, we're rolling. So
Yeah.
players like that, man, like you're going to get criticized for, you're going to get all of these things, but these are the decisions you have to make on the fly. And you have to stand by it. You have to commit to it. You have to sell out when you're making these decisions. So I think he's doing a great job. I know that was a roundabout, long-winded answer, but I love the fact that he's learning on the job. He's learning personalities because this is a different team, Mike. This is not just a development team, rebuild a team. This is the team with expectations. and players that are ready to make a push now. Brandon Ingram didn't come to Toronto to lose. RJ Barrett is not wanting to be in Toronto and stay in Toronto to lose. He want to play on the highest level. Scotty Barnes did not want to lose. I'm not saying any of the other guys want to lose, but now you have franchise guys that are looking to win. The coach has to step up and provide that every single day. So it's a different relationship and it's a different dynamic. And I think he's doing a very good job handling it.
Thank you very much, Alvin. Now, I know that I said that was the last question, but this is the closeout question.
Hey, man, what you got for me?
You charging me extra? How much is it?
Like 2 or 3 toonies. That ain't nothing.
Okay. Closeout question here.
Some of them
let's say,
some of them oxtail. That's
I got you. Don't worry. Don't worry. If the players were watching this show right now and you had to give them a message before they go out and play game 4, what would you say to them?
Go out the same way. Desperation, the energy that they played with that crowd. It was a beautiful sight to see. It was good to be in the building. You felt the energy, you felt the intensity, and you saw it. You saw the seriousness. I think RJ Barrett doesn't get enough credit to how he approaches the game and how he sets the tone from an emotional standpoint. I mean, he's solid. He's very solid. He's steady. He's consistent from an emotional standpoint. Yeah, he has his flare-ups, but I've seen enough. RJ has been pretty much being like an enforcer out there, not letting people bully him, not let people do anything to his teammates. He's stepping right up. I saw him push James Harden out the way. I saw him and Jalen Tyson getting into it yesterday. I love what RJ is bringing to him, but I would just say for the team, continue. Of course, every game is different, but from the focus, the intensity, and just the effort standpoint, it has to be on the beam. It has to be at 100. It has to be A1. And then everything else will fall into place. The execution, the adjustments, you got to be locked in, ready to make those adjustments on the fly or out of a timeout. But those 3 things, man, from your intensity level to your focus and to the effort just has to be there.
Alvin Boogie Williams, always appreciate you coming on the show, my man. Thank you very, very much. Don't worry, I'll make sure that oxtail and rice and peas is waiting for you.
Man, okay? I can't, and it got to be this summer, man, where I can come hang out, have a couple adult beverages, some libations, and some good times, man. You know, I'm all for it.
We'll work it out. My man, Alvin Williams, thank you very much,
no
brother.
doubt. Thanks, bro.